What a can of worms we have opened here on this channel, Homesteading Off the Grid, the most popular homesteading channel on the entire internet that has absolutely nothing to do with homesteading. So I came on here just a couple of weeks ago to make everybody aware of how they were forcing 1,000 families in our Central Virginia area into as many as 20 hours a week of unpaid work by way of busing or driving our children to and from school because they decided to take away the buses. And for anybody who lived further out than that 15-minute smart city model, it affected 1,000 people. Well, that video's had about 250,000 views, and we've done follow-up videos that have gotten tens of thousands. And we're hearing everybody's stories. And I tell you, I never intended this to happen. I didn't expect it. I figured people would say, oh, look at this guy crying on the internet. There's a lot of people voicing, and listen, there are so many vile abuses taking place in the U.S. public schools. Teachers, we have teachers admitting to these abuses. Their parents are unaware. And if you're watching this up there in Canada, it's going on there too. Got proof of it right here. So I don't want to keep you folks too long. I appreciate the time you spend with me. I'm just going to get right into this. I'm going to read you some of the nonsense. And this is one of the beautiful things about social media. Excuse me. I come on here and tell my story, and hundreds of thousands or millions of people watch, and they chime in about their own. Folks, this is a pandemic. This insanity that's going on in the schools. You wait till you hear about the bird nest. Yeah, that's worth waiting for. You wait till you hear about the bird nest, okay? Forgive me if I'm a little bit hoarse. I coached 2 football games today in 90 degrees weather, and I was doing a lot of screaming from the sidelines. Coaching, I mean, you got to scream in the plays or whatever. So I sound hoarse. What do you call a pony? What do you, with a sore throat? A little horse. Okay, so this one comes in from Cast Iron Skillet Granny. She says, this truth needs to invade the nation. And Miss Cast Iron Skillet Granny, I believe it is, from right here off of this channel. After a successful career in a technical field, I taught college. I found out that the students who'd come to me by way of the public school system were in no way prepared. They had not been taught, they had been indoctrinated. Needless to say, I did not fit into academia. All right, now to give you some 20 seconds or less backdrop, you'll need to understand, or backstory to understand for this next comment. We were talking about IEPs, individualized education plans. This is what special needs students, what they used to call special ed students, get. How they say, okay, these are our goals. We want to get the student here, and this is what we're going to do to get there. And about how basically, if a kid has an IEP, they'll never fail because the teacher will potentially lose their job for not meeting that criteria to make those goals happen. So they're passing kids through. They can't read, they can't write. They're just passing them through, though, out of job security. Fear of losing their jobs, these teachers, in the public schools. Okay? Bonnie Beckley writes, my nephew is affected by this. They just kept passing him through rather than getting him to understand the lessons. Now that he is an adult, he struggles greatly with life. Because where's that going to end up? How's that going to work out for you? Yeah, okay, you keep your job, so you get your little pension, which doesn't even, it gives you like 60% of what you need. So you're going to have to be a Walmart greeter anyway. And you've sent some kid out there that can't read or write. And no offense towards Walmart greeters. I have much more respect for them than I do these folks who would pass on a kid just so they don't get to lose, just so they don't lose their job. It's disgusting. All right, from Hope Seeker 97. No education. It is indoctrination to make them woke activists who are dumbed down and brainwashed to be a servant to those in charge. Yep, in high school, my child had a friend who used their IEP to their advantage. They knew they couldn't fail, so they didn't do anything. And then they flunked out of college in their first year. Surprise, surprise. See, you're setting these wonderful young people up for failure. Now, from Mama O in New Hampshire. A principal in Manchester, New Hampshire, she writes, pulls teachers into his office one at a time to intimidate them, to change grades. He asks them what they will do to make sure each child passes. I know of a 7th grade child who had a math grade in the 20s. The principal changed their grade to a B behind the teacher's back. We brought these issues up to the superintendent, who did nothing. Mama O in New Hampshire, you reminded me of a dishonest principal we had here just a few years ago with our son. And I'm going to relate this story to you here just in 2 minutes or less. So my beautiful bride, Dearly, aka Giggly Girls, from the Philippines, sadly, it's been 2 years ago now, she had a sister who died while giving birth. The little boy lived, and he's healthy and happy. But her sister Connie died. She was the oldest. She was a year older than my wife, and she was her closest sister. And it was heartbreaking. Oh my goodness. So for the first time in actually 5 years, my wife was going back to the Philippines to be with the family during that time. Our son, who was born in the Philippines, was going with her. I couldn't go because this was during the days of COVID, and the Philippines at the time was only allowing Filipino nationals into the country. So tourists weren't allowed in, and I totally get it. And it was hard on us because we were apart for 3 months. So there was less than a month left in school, about a month left in school. So I emailed my son's public school principal, and I asked him, Dr. So-and-so, this is what's going on. We've got these plane tickets for such and so date. Do you want my son Daniel to just take his laptop with him and continue to do the virtual learning from there? Because they were still doing virtual learning. Yeah, so that's what I asked. I said, is this, or I said, or should we buy our own laptop or buy him a different laptop? And we have multiple laptops, because I was concerned they might not want the school's laptop to go overseas. So he emails back and he tells me that, as it turned out, the students were going to be brought back to school in that last month. So this was about 2 or 3 months before the trip, to take the SOLs, Standards of Learning. And the students had to take it in person. So what we needed to do was withdraw my son from school and have him go to a private school, or withdraw him from school and have him go be homeschooled. Those were my options. That was it. Because if he could not come take the SOLs and sit for the SOLs, oh no, here was the third option. He could fly to the Philippines. Mind you, this is a $2,000 airplane ticket. And I'd already bought tickets for him and my wife. It was close to $4,000. And then fly him back to sit for these tests for 3 or 4 days, and then fly him back to the Philippines. So you're looking at another $3,000 or $4,000 in airfare. And I was like, shucks, man. So I started scrambling to try to exchange the tickets, right, for another date. I told my wife, I said, you're just going to have to miss this time with your family. We're going to have to push it back a month because he's got to sit for these tests. Well, we have a friend who has a son who is a friend of our son's, who is not the most academic kid, okay? He's just not. He's a good kid, but school just isn't his thing. Well, they were planning a trip to Florida during that same time frame of these SOL tests that the kids had to be there for. Couldn't miss. So she goes and talks to the teacher and says, hey, we're going to be in Florida. What do we do about the SOLs? You know what the teacher says? The teacher says, oh, don't worry about it. And our friend says, what do you mean don't worry about it? Says, he doesn't have to take those. As a parent, you can say that you're refusing to allow your kid to take the SOLs, and he doesn't have to be here. Just go on to Florida and have a good time. Well, she told her about our situation, and that teacher shook her head, and she says, I know their son, Daniel, he's a straight A student. She says, listen, I'm not trying to say anything derogatory about your son. He's a wonderful kid too. She said that principal wants Daniel, our son, to take those SOLs because he knows he's going to inflate the scores because he's going to score high, and that's going to make the school look better. She said, do not tell that family that I gave you this information because I will get fired. But please tell them that they can refuse to have their son take those tests, and they can take their trip to the Philippines when they want to take it. She came to our house and told us that. I called that principal. He wouldn't take my call. So I told him on the phone, the receptionist, I said, I'm refusing to allow my son to take the SOLs this year. And they said, okay. That was all there was to it. So he lied. And he knew the situation. I told him, my wife's sister, her favorite sister, just died while giving birth. And she hasn't seen her family in 5 years, and we're sending her back. We bought the plane tickets. This is trauma going on in our family. And he lied to me, trying to inflate his SOL scores, which makes him look better as a principal. He never would take my call. I tried multiple times, and the following year he was teaching at another school in the county. And we have friends who have children that attend that school. They know about this story, and we told them, never trust that man. That man is a liar. We should have pulled our kid out of school. He should have never gone back after COVID. We learned during COVID. Kids can learn virtually. You got a disciplined kid, but guess what? If you discipline your kids, you'll have a disciplined kid. It is that simple. They can do it online. What used to be a 10-hour day for him is now a 3-hour day. We're loving it. We're going hiking. We're going mountain biking. We're going swimming. Sorry, I'm from the South. We're going hiking. We're going swimming. All these other things, INGs. Playing more football. He's getting together with his teammates. We're not worried about socialization. He's the quarterback on his football team. He has been for years. They did a great job today. Played the defending league champions and made them work to barely beat us at the end. All right, let's move on. I don't want to take up too much of your time. From ritad.franklin6372. I worked as a substitute teacher for 3 months. My students asked me how many sexes there are. I answered 2, male and female. One of my students told me he wanted to be called by a girl's name and told me what he wanted me to call him. I asked him, what do your mom and dad call you? He told me his real name. I told him I was going to call him the same thing his mom and dad called him. I was fired after the first quarter and told that I was not professional. I knew exactly where the standard was, and it is totally what we have been seeing in this current administration in D.C. Mrs. User Dawn writes, my son is a senior and is graduating K-12. That's where we're educating our son now. Highly recommend it. K12.com. Go check it out. It's free if you do the public option. And I am not being paid to promote this group. She further says, I quit teaching to homeschool my child for all the reasons you've discussed, which is the woke crap and all that. I am so glad I made this choice. My son is smart, happy, and well-adjusted. Dammler D-A-M-M-L-C-R writes, the principal told me this, quote, we no longer hold children back due to grades. It affects their self-esteem, and that is more important, end quote. This was in Colorado in 2008. It had nothing to do with learning or earning, the grades even then. You want to know what lowers your self-esteem? Not being able to get a well-paying job because you're illiterate, or maybe you're not up to snuff with the competition who's trying to get that, the better paying job. So you get a job that doesn't pay well because that's all you're qualified to do because you were pushed through the system by a bunch of public school teachers who don't want to lose their very low paying jobs. And so you end up with a low paying job and then you have no self-esteem. That's worse. All right. Terry Jeanette, 5436 writes, the school system is ridiculous. I won't mention where, but there's a school. This is it. There's a school where a student identifies as a bird. They were ordered to build a nest for the bird to sit in during class. Welcome to woke, folks. Student identifies as a bird, so they built a bird's nest for the student to sit in during class. How ridiculous is that? Guy Granger 7894 writes, I'm a firm believer in homeschooling. The most well-adjusted kids I've ever met were homeschooled. I think lots of folks are reluctant because they don't know that the requirement for homeschooling is only 3 hours a day. And we found that. Really, 2.5. But even your best friend in the same school class can be a distraction. Yeah, one of my son's best friends was his biggest distraction. Plus, a homeschooled kid isn't exposed to bullying, peer pressure, or indoctrination. And I'll add to that the potential of a school shooting. All right, monkey bone tube. Some of you guys and girls are going to have to go talk to your parents about the names they chose for you. Anyway, Monkey Bone Tube writes, Connections Academy is also a great K-12 virtual school nationwide. So there's another one. Connections Academy. Check that one out. Absolutely free, they write. They supply everything. Teachers are awesome. We can travel as they learn, which is something we're looking forward to doing. Once the weather gets cold here, we're going somewhere warmer. My eldest son graduated last year. I have 2 more kids to go. No indoctrination BS, just school. Highly recommend. So they teach curriculum, not social justice woke stuff. Okay. Renee E. Nicholson, 6343 writes, I taught for 40 years, primarily college business and English, but started teaching high school business courses. Also taught basic math and intro algebra for the military while stationed in West Germany. I had to quit teaching because of being blackballed. I expected students to actually bring the book to class and use it. I had many students tell me I was the only professor who made them crack open their books. It's sad to leave a career I truly loved, but there is little actual learning going on, and from what I have observed, very little teaching either. Sydney Fletcher, to our viewers up in Canada. This happens in Canada too. A friend was substitute teaching home economics in our city high school, grade 12. A bunch of kids failed to meet college entrance requirements at year end. After she submitted the report cards to the office, the failed students came up to her in the hall excited that they had passed, but they hadn't. The principal upped their grades in order to get more government funding. Schools get paid for every kid that passes. It's a crime that does no favors for our children. Going on in Canada. Western society may be doomed, folks. Or at least North American Western society. Well, it's doomed. They stopped teaching about the Holocaust in English public schools about 15 years ago because a certain sect of their population, who was not originally from there, by the way, are offended because they think they want to claim it never happened. They stopped teaching it. What do they say? When we forget our history, we're doomed to repeat it? It's like they're trying to erase everything around here. All right. Katie 27320 writes, anyone with a child who has an IEP, that's the individualized education plan, that's for the special needs kids, should attend a White Slaw conference. Parents are given an entirely incorrect view of their power in IEP meetings by the public schools. The parent has all the power. They cannot be outvoted by the school. Did you know that you can graduate from the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind with a certificate of attendance? No actual diploma or academic standards required. You just show up and you get a diploma. Yeah, that's not helping anybody, is it? And that's it. It's almost been 20 minutes anyway. So folks, like I said at the beginning, we've opened a can of worms here. And listen, I have always, my entire life, supported the public school system. I attended the public school system. We left the Philippines 3 months before my son started kindergarten to bring him to the United States so he could attend this public school system. We wanted him to get the best education he could get in the world. We're considering going back and putting him in a private school there. We wanted first world luxuries such as transportation, paid for, of course, by our tax dollars. They took it away from us. And I asked, will I get a refund on my taxes? And the woman told me, an administrator of the school said, sweetheart, I'm just making phone calls. And I'm from the South. That means there's nothing you can do about it. Screw off. That's like saying, bless your heart. It means the same thing when they call you sweetheart. I'm just doing my job, sweetheart. There's like, I don't care about your situation, you a-hole. That's what that means in the South. They just say it real syrupy and nicely, and they're real friendly. I'm from here, brah. I speak the language. All right. If you've got stories to share, put them in the comment section on the channel. See you for more next time.